I'm a chemist by training and at Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey, for my PhD. And then after my training at Rutgers and then at Madison, Wisconsin, I joined Bristol Myers Squibb as a medicinal chemist in the 1980s. I stayed there for 7+ years, but got a wonderful opportunity to come to the San Francisco Bay Area to join the era of combinatorial chemistry in the 1990s. And then after 2 years, Affymex got acquired by Glaxo Wellcome. So I said, well, starting a company cannot be that difficult. And I stepped out with my boss at that time. We started this company, Versacor, with $5 million from an investor in 96. And to make a long story short, the company went public in 2000 and then ultimately in 2005 when we were pretty close to approval of two different drugs, Pfizer acquired us for $1.9 billion. So that was in 2005. And after that, I started stepping into more entrepreneur and CEO type roles. But since 2008, I have been with Protagonist. And what attracted me was like, and this is an important point, it's like, I was always a small molecule medicinal chemist by training, but if you look at the past few decades, it has also been the era of big biologics. So for me to find my footing saying, where does a small molecule chemist go and apply his or her expertise? And in peptides, I found a happy medium. It's like, okay, these are neither too big nor too small. And gee, wouldn't it be wonderful if we created something where we can have the best of both worlds at one end, use peptides to apply in situations where small molecules cannot do that. So, for example, whether it's an hepcidin mimetic or GLP-1 mimetic, those sort of things. But the other would be like, look, injectable antibodies are dominating the scene with blockbuster category drugs in the field of inflammation and immunology, right? Drugs like Humira and Skyrizi and Tremfya, all these I&I blockers, but they are injectables. And wouldn't it be wonderful if peptides could be applied to that? But it would be an oral peptide. Then you have the best of both worlds. It's like the amazing potency of biologics and the convenience of a pill. So those are the kind of things that we have been cultivating slowly, steadily. Protagonist journey is very long since 2008, but it has been a very rewarding one for me and the whole Protagonist team. And here we are now at a junction where, I mean, this year, hopefully, we are eyeing approval of two important drugs, Rusfertide, which is partnered with Takeda, and then Icotrokinra, the oral and the only oral IL-23 blocker partnered with J&J. And that's kind of our entry into the quote unquote commercial space, right? Because now, albeit we are doing it with partners who know a lot more about commercialization than we do. And then we have a whole new wave of other peptidic drugs in the pipeline. In our social circles, we often hear things like, oh, I am anemic or I am iron deficient or something like that, right? Polycythemia vera is just the opposite. It's like when your body is producing too many red blood cells, right? And so it's an abnormality. It exists in a few individuals. The prevalence is about 180,000 patients in the US, I believe. So it is by definition a rare disease, but it is not that uncommon. It is not ultra rare. And for those unfortunate individuals, first of all, it's a lifelong situation, and it's based on a genetic mutation. So it's not as if it was your fault. You were not exercising enough or not eating properly. None of those things. It's genetic. You are stuck with it. And for the longest time, the approach has been phlebotomy or bloodletting, and it makes sense, right? It's like if nothing else is available, take out blood, you're removing iron and creating a balance. But when you remove blood, you're removing other things also. You're removing too much iron and you're almost creating an iron deficiency. So it doesn't serve the purpose and actually creates an opposite effect. So no good solutions out there in a way. And that is where what we felt was like if hepcidin is the master regulator of iron homeostasis, so in simple terms, it controls three things: the absorption of iron, storage of iron, and distribution of iron in the body. But by getting that recalibrated with a synthetic mimetic, which has medicinal properties, what we can do is control the flow of iron into the bone marrow where red blood cells are produced. And by doing that, hopefully, we will be able to control the disease. Now, I have to, with full admittance, disclose that it was quite a journey. So when we were first developing Rusfertide, the first application that we seeked was in beta thalassemia, which is another blood disorder disease. And honestly, it didn't work out over there to our liking. The second utility that we seeked was in hereditary hemochromatosis. And this is where these individuals that they suffer from what we refer to as an iron overload. They have too much iron in the body. Now, fortunately, the drug works over there. But for those individuals, the solution is simple. It's just the iron overload throughout the body, not just in the bone marrow, right? So you do a phlebotomy once a year, or maybe at the most twice a year, and you're done with it. So that's not too bad. So the drug works there, but that is not where we are seeking the regulatory approval. But in polycythemia vera, it's like you have truly excessive RBC production, and you can imagine if left untreated, then with the excessive red blood cell production, your blood is going to thicken. In fact, the common terminology for PV is like it's a thick blood disease, something like that, right? And then it can clog your arteries and veins, and it could lead to, cardiovascular events, including death, that sort of thing. So it has to be treated. But to our surprise, there was no medicine that was very RBC specific, even though this is an RBC specific disease, right? So like I said, phlebotomy, you're removing blood, so you're removing not just RBCs, but also white blood cells and platelets, those kind of things. There are other drugs like hydroxyurea and the interferons and JAK inhibitors, but they're all indiscriminate, meaning they affect all cell counts. So for us, this could be a very good utility, which is almost like precision medicine, right? It's RBC specific. And what happened is like we started doing the study, and you have to realize this was the third indication that we were evaluating the drug in, and our experience with beta thalassemia had left a bitter taste in our mouth. So we were a bit nervous, but 3 out of 3 patients, it was like amazing hematocrit control, and they didn't need a phlebotomy. Hematocrit is, as you know, the ratio of red blood cell volume to total blood volume. And the guidelines for PV is treatment is like, hey, your hematocrit should be below 45%. And we were controlling it like 24/7. And we were like, okay, 3 out of 3, maybe we just got lucky. But then it's 5 out of 5 and 6 out of 6. And that is when we knew we had something really great. And we, were able to kind of stick our neck out and proclaim that we have a very unique, wonderful, first-in-class precision medicine drug like Rusfertide for PV. And the phase 2 data has been fabulous. And phase 3, we were conducting it on our own with full confidence. The whole intent was like, this is a rare disease drug. So Protagonist can, as a small biotech company, have the ambitions of launching the drug on its own and seeing it through commercialization. But then, I'm also a big believer of the expert system, so to speak. It's like, hey, is the drug going to be better off in the hands of a biotech company like Protagonist, which will have its first gig with this drug in the commercial space? Or can we join hands with a pharma company that has expertise, ability to scale, and amazing resources? So while we were not, quote unquote, actively seeking partnerships, we had dialogue with many companies. And with Takeda, we had an ongoing dialogue stretched out over a number of years, but ultimately one thing led to the other. And while we were in the middle of phase 3 studies, and of course, it was a fully blinded study, Takeda had all the confidence in the world that this was a wonderful drug. So did we. And we were able to get the terms that we thought were fair to both parties. So that is when we inked the deal in January of 2024. And now here we are, both companies working together. By the way, the phase 3 data was just outstanding. And it was selected for a plenary session at ASCO last year. And the study. And the selection process is pretty tedious and severe, right? More than 5,000 applicants, and they select out of those five presentations. So we were one of those five. And the remarks were just amazing. It was like, hey, this is a practice-changing drug. This should be part of standard of care for PV treatment. So it just reaffirmed and created visibility amongst the physicians in the heme space. And the study met its primary endpoint of, basically controlling, reducing or eliminating the need for phlebotomy. And it also met all the four secondary endpoints, which, by the way, one of the endpoint was like basically something that would also qualify for a successful primary endpoint outcome for application in Europe. So that's wonderful. And on top of that, there were two secondary endpoints which were centered around symptom control. As you can imagine, these patients, they have a very heavy symptom burden, right? Phlebotomy is your treatment. There is anxiety around it. As you can imagine, you have to go to the hospital. And then when you receive a phlebotomy, that's not a walk in the park. There is a needle involved, and there is blood letting for quite some time, that kind of thing. But after that, you are iron deficient, right? You have removed all the iron from the body, and all of a sudden now you are exhibiting symptoms of iron deficiency. So fatigue, memory fog, those sort of things. And our drug basically scored positively around those symptom improvement endpoints as well, right? So that was really the icing on the cake, so to speak. If you were to ask me, we could not have expected anything better out of the phase 3 study than what we achieved. So really remarkable data. And on the heels of that, we have filed for an NDA as of the end of last year on December 29th, to be precise. And here we are. And it's a drug for a rare disease. We have the breakthrough designation and all that kind of stuff. So we are hoping for an approval sometime this year. So like I said, our characteristic is like we believe in the expert system, meaning we are going to increasingly so let Takeda worry about, the next things like how to do the proper launch and all that. And this is such an important drug in their pipeline that they are doing an amazing job. That's all I can tell. But they will be the spokespeople for launching the drug properly. As you can imagine, it's a rare disease, and there is a lack of awareness, to put it bluntly, in terms of the seriousness of the disease. And there is also a lack of awareness in terms of like what are the new solutions, meaning Rusfertide like solutions that are available. So there is a lot of preaching and awareness building that the two companies will have to do. And the ASH plenary presentation, in a way, was like the first step in that direction. All of a sudden, a lot more people now know about PV, and a lot more many people know about Rusfertide. So and so that is something we just have to continue with the community, with the practicing physicians, especially the community physicians, that kind of stuff. So there is some work cut out for us. But like I said, with more, around 150,000 patients per US, almost an equal number in Europe. And with Takeda comes the special privilege of having a presence in Asia, including Japan. This could become, even though it's a rare disease drug, it could become a blockbuster drug in its own right. Now, what else is there? We stay close to our knitting, and so we let the experts do what they are great at doing, and we try to do what we think we are great at doing. So the next wave for us is, as you know, Rusfertide, it's an injectable, sub-Q, right? Weekly injectable, and it's going to do a great job. What we are working on is an oral hepcidin mimetic, something, let's say you can take it daily as a pill, or that kind of thing. And next week at the JP Morgan conference, we will probably have more disclosure around that. So stay tuned. But that's the second act for Protagonist. And unlike Rusfertide, which is partnered with Takeda, the oral hepcidin mimetic, that is fully owned by Protagonist. And the idea would be like, and you can think of it as part and parcel of life cycle management. And the two drugs are, far apart from each other. It will be at least, 5 to 7 years before an oral hepcidin mimetic sees the light of the day in a commercial space. So I think Rusfertide will do a great job. at creating a market, a great market. An oral hepcidin mimetic could be a wonderful second act. One thing people notice is like, wow, what amazing partnerships with Takeda and with J&J. Is this a company that is going to focus almost exclusively on partnerships only? And the answer is yes and no. And what I mean by that is like, look, as I said before, we value partnerships, the right kind of partnerships. And we believe pharma does an amazing job with its experience, expertise, and ability to scale. So we have nothing against that. But if you think about it, Rusfertide, it was something we were developing on our own. We had aspirations to take it all the way through the finish line. So maybe in the second act, what we could be also be doing is like, hey, in the rare disease arena, we could certainly envision Protagonist as a company that may take the drug all the way to the finish line through commercialization, that kind of thing, right? So it's something that's an important clarifying message. On the other hand, in the blockbuster category drugs, right, we are developing anti-obesity agents. We are developing oral IL-17 blockers, those kind of things. I mean, these are categories where we have no aspirations of commercializing those drugs on our own. We will let the big pharma do that. But the partnership will happen at the right time and at the right junction. We have ample cash that we can fund our own R&D up to at least clinical proof of concept. And then there will be a right junction when we do partnerships. And even partnerships at that junction is not something where we give away the whole farm. We could share the risk and reward, right? We could say, hey, we will co-develop it and co-commercialize it, things of that nature. So I think Protagonist is maturing as a company. It is creating its own unique model of like how to get into the next stage of growth, right? Right now, we are a 5 billion plus market cap company. How do we get into the 10 to 20 billion category? We will stay with the fundamentals we have, meaning we are great at innovating new drugs. So that is what we will continue to capitalize on. And then we will have creative mechanisms where rare disease drugs we could be developing on our own, and blockbuster category drugs, we delay the partnerships so that we get better economics, but at some junction, partner it with big pharma. So I think it's a win-win. And this, in a way, will be a very unique model. Maybe we'll be one of the first companies that will get in this 10 to 20 billion market cap as a biotech without any full-fledged commercialization of its own. So time will tell. But we like to be innovative, not just in the science, but also in the business and operational aspects of the company. Last but not least, I mean, just to overemphasize, by having the setup that we have created, we are kind of claiming almost complete financial independence. We are not going to dilute away our shareholders, right? If you look at typical biotechs, they go into commercialization, then they have to raise a ton of money, that kind of thing, and bear those sales force expenditures. We are not doing any of that. If at all anything, we are doing the opposite. Our intent would be to not dilute shareholders, but instead concentrate their positions.